with their clothes on, and so I hardly recognise you. But thanks to Seti for arranging this Legends Dinner, inviting us to share our stories. Thank you for your fabulous organisation of the whole swim. For me, it ran so smoothly and was such fun. I'm sure it was an overload for you at times, and there were some hiccups, but we didn't notice that. I didn't. It required mammoth planning, but you pulled it off beautifully, and I'm so appreciative that through your vision I got to achieve my 50-year-old dream. They did say that they made a big thing of me being the matriarch. I don't feel my age, but anyway, I have had this dream for 50 years. I can't really tell you about my Samoan swim experience without briefly mentioning my journey through depression, and it's still a road that I am travelling. I hate actually saying aloud that word suicide, but 6 to 7 years ago it really was my reality, and I was fighting so hard every day not to go ahead with taking my own life. And one of the reasons I didn't was because of the love I have for my family, and I know the love that they have for me. We started getting medical support for me in early 2011, and I began doing yoga 3 or 4 times a week and regularly swimming, which is something I've always done since I was that big. I started exercising, which is really important for me and vital for my mental health well-being. And then I decided to give the New Zealand Ocean Swim Series a go. I did my first one in March 2012, which was the King of the Bays. And that was when I first really got to know Scott and Tash as well. Moss swam that first one with me. I lacked a lot of confidence at that time. He had a fiberglass cast on because he'd broken his arm from skateboarding. We used that swim to fundraise for the New Zealand Mental Health Foundation, and we raised $16,000. Since 2012, I've been swimming in the New Zealand Ocean Swim Series, as well as several other ocean events each year. I look upon swimming as my therapy, and the ocean is really my happy place. I feel so at home in the sea. It's calming, it replenishes me, and I find the sound of the bubbles really soothing. Ocean swimming energises and balances me and gives me huge confidence and peace. When I was 10 years old, I said to my dad, who I was very close to, that I had 3 goals that I wanted to do and achieve. I wanted to swim the English Channel, I wanted to run a marathon, and I wanted to write a book. I did the marathon, and my dad said he would buy me a red E-Type Jag if I swam the English Channel. That was my favourite car at the time because I had a girl crush on Emma Peel from The Avengers. I thought she was really cool, and she had an E-Type Jag, and I wanted to be like her. So in July 2015, when Seti sent me an email with the details of the Upolu-Savaii swim, I didn't hesitate to commit. I didn't really even discuss it with Greg, I just entered. This was going to be my English Channel, and even though my dad passed away almost 33 years ago, I knew he would be 100% supportive. The Samoan swim, or my English Channel as I called it, consumed my thoughts from then on, and it was always in the back of my mind, and I would be planning swim routes around Whangamata where we lived, and many times visualise the actual swim and finishing it, and I know that was something Abby did as well. I have the utmost admiration and respect for elite athletes who commit and train for years, such as Moss and also such as Philip. They train and are focused, and Moss competed successfully on the world stage for several years. I only had to do it for these 8 months. I had some amazing experiences. 90% of my training was in the ocean around Whangamata and on my own. That was just how things were because of our work and because we have no really ready access to our pool in Whangamata. There were fabulous early mornings when the sun rose like a big orange ball between Donut Island and Clark Island. I was to be the only one in the water and just see this coming up. It was amazing. One really neat thing that happened was I was down going for a swim in the harbour at Whangamata, and a lady came up to me as I was getting my gear out the boot, and she said, "Excuse me," and I said, "Yeah," and she said, "I've seen you here before doing this." She said, "Are you Lisa Carrington?" And I said, "No." I thought that was such a compliment. My most wonderful experience was one evening after work when I went down to do a 4K swim. I was only in the water for about 5 minutes when I spotted a large dolphin and a couple of metres below me, and a smaller one to my left. They swam with me for 56 minutes. It was just magical. They were never more than a metre in front or side, and I had to shorten my arm stroke several times to avoid touching them. They did breaching, and then they did lots of tail slapping, and I sort of tried to copy them, but I just went up and down for about 600 metres up and down, hoping that Greg would hurry up and show up for his swim down there. Eventually it was getting a bit darker, and I thought I'd better go in. It was sort of 6:15. And so I started to think about going in, and the big dolphin, I'm quite a spiritual person, and I felt that he tuned into me. I call him a him, but it could have been a her. And he started herding me towards the beach. I got to about chest height, and I was starting to get scared that he would strand himself. And then he still went in even further, and we were at hip height, and I said, "Stop, you can't go in anymore, you're going to get stranded." So I put one hand behind his dorsal fin and one on his side, and waited till a bit of a wave came in, and I pushed him out, pushed him again, pushed him out, and he went, and he did a couple of flips with his tail, and he was off. And it was like for 56 minutes, that was just amazing. And I've been out lots of times before, and even in Samoa while I was doing the swim, I kept thinking, "Come on, dolphin, you can come back, I'm here now." But so far I haven't seen him again. But I stood in the shallows, and I just couldn't believe it, and I can't describe words to describe that. The next day I was told by a friend that earlier in the day there'd been a group of surfers and there'd been quite a big shark in the area. So I'm absolutely convinced that those two dolphins were there to protect me. Seti asked us for our estimated swim time so he could start us to time it with us all finishing in Savaii at about the same time or within an hour of each other. I put in a conservative time of 10 hours. I was secretly hoping that maybe 9 hours, but I didn't want to kind of look stupid by going slower than what I put in. But I did 8 hours 5 minutes, which blew me away, and I was really stoked. Unlike Abby, I really am just an average swimmer. But I remember thinking, I didn't keep sort of track of times and things like that. The time was kind of really weird while we swam the swim, but I remember thinking that when Philip was starting his swim, that I had been in the water for 3.5 hours then already, and I still had 4.5 hours to go at that time when I look back. But he did the whole distance in just over 5 hours, so that actually really made me smile that he was starting when I had been in for that long, and so had Todd and Kate. Yeah, he was a machine. In the practice swims before the race, I found the sea in Samoa to be very warm, and I was quite concerned about that it would be too hot and would affect my stamina. But for the crossing, it was actually just perfect. It was just pleasant and right. The other thing I really liked about this swim was having only a few swimmers in the water. At the start, there weren't feet in your face like there is at the New Zealand oceans. And people pushing you down. There was just a handful of us here, and we just sort of smiled. We got a bit confused with the start because we weren't quite sure whether it would be a hooter or a call. But there was just a nice clean glide out into the semi-darkness, and then following the kayak out into the ocean. And also it didn't seem like a race. I didn't feel like I was competing against anyone else, so there wasn't any pressure or anxiety about it. It was just kind of like another long training swim. My goal was just to complete it and achieve the distance, and we were all incredibly supportive of each other, and there was a really genuine bond the whole week. It was really neat, a really nice feeling. I was so grateful the weather allowed us to swim it on the day, so I didn't know, Mike, that was all going on. I think one of my fears was that it would be crappy and get cancelled, and then we would have done all that stuff for nothing, but I think I would have just swum it anyway. I would have tried to talk Moss and Cole into going. But the weather was overcast, which was good, and everything went ahead on the planned day. I decided prior to the swim that during the swim I would not ask a lot of questions to my support crew. I don't think I did. I remember once saying, "I want to go that way, not that way." But I felt it would be easier to just enjoy and concentrate on my swimming, and I just left everything up to Moss and Cole, because who else would know me better than my own kids, and it made a relaxing swim for me. I did get seasick in that middle spell. The swells and the waves affected my timing, so I felt sometimes my arms or my kick were going in the air and missing the water altogether, and at other times my arm stroke was too short and it just ended up punching the waves. I had difficulty keeping my tailwind electrolyte down, which is what I used for my nutrition, and there were several chundas. And I was starting to think that if I didn't keep my nutrients down, I could run out of steam near the end. So I had a chat with my dad in my head, and I said, Dad, I need some flat water soon, or it's going to be really hard, and he better send me some. And then the next minute, Cole called out, Moss says there's smoother water about 800 metres ahead. Amazing. I got to it within a couple of minutes, and then I felt great again. And after that, I kept my fluids down, and I was even able to suck on a baby food pouch, was the other food that I took. The swim was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I do remember getting out and saying, oh, I don't need to do that again. But it's like childbirth, and actually the pain goes away quite quickly. And all I was left with was this wonderful buzz and happiness, and I just loved it, and I loved the hours of training too. Having Cole and Moss as my support crew was ultra special. They were so helpful with their sporting and their swim knowledge, and they were a fun company. And I think it's pretty neat when you really like your kids as people and not just love them because they're your kids. Thanks to Sue and Peter too, special friends who went to Samoa with fabulous support. They quickly became everyone's new best friend too, after only about half an hour, when we all went and joined Sue and Peter at their place. Greg, my husband, wasn't terribly enthusiastic for me to enter the swim to start with, but I had to go for it. It wasn't easy for him to remain in Whangamata while I swanned off with the boys to a tropical island. But I do thank you, Greg, heaps, for everything, and giving me this opportunity to make this very old dream of mine a reality. My dad isn't here to give me my red E-type Jag, but I've got to show you this little thing, which is a little car that Moss gave me. It's an E-type Jag when we got back to New Zealand. And it says Upolu-Savaii swim, 22.3k, 50-year-old dream. Thank you, Moss. I did it, and I knew I could, and I would, and no one can ever take that achievement away from me. That's an amazing and reassuring feeling. Thanks for listening.